Today I'm going to talk about first time buyer concerned, what to do first, because that is a question I get asked a lot. Hi, my name's Amanda Walker and I'm the mortgage coach, and I believe everyone has a right to own their own place. And today, as I said, we're going to be talking about a first time buyer concern, what to do first. Now, what I would ask to do first is find someone who has been through the process before, preferably a mortgage advisor who's been through the process before, so they can give it from an experience point of view as they've done it before, and also from a practical point of view, and then also from a theoretical educational quality as well. So you have both sides, because it's all very well having a mortgage broker that can give you all the information that you need and knows how the whole process works, but it's great having someone who's physically gone through it and done it and had those feelings as well. And if you can find someone that's done both, then that is really, really great. Now, the next thing I'd say is understand the buying process. Now, by understanding the buying process, what happens first is the fear. You reduce the fear. At the end of the day, it's a case of most people are afraid of the unknown. Once you actually know and understand how the process works, you're less anxious about it because you know the process. It's good to have someone that, one, explains the whole process to you, and then as you go step by step, just explains what the next step's going to be. Handhold you, explain what it is, explain how it all works, and then that way you know what you need to do, you know what's coming next, and then the unknown is gone, so there's no fear. The great other thing about knowing the buying process is because you know what's coming next, you know what to prepare, you know what to get ready. You understand completely these are the steps and this is what it's going to result in, and then you know at what point you need to include other people. And when I say understand the buying process, I don't just mean when you apply for the mortgage and getting the mortgage offer. I mean the whole process. So how do you search for a property? How do you know how the mortgage and all that whole process works? How do you know what the seller actually does and what that involves? How do you know what the solicitor does? How do you know what the surveyor does? The whole thing, from the day you say, I'd like to buy my own place, right up until you get those keys and you open the door. I never forget when I was 22 and I bought my first property, and that feeling of actually putting the key in the door and actually opening and just looking around. I was by myself and I was just literally walking around, and I was actually touching the walls because I was like, this is mine. And when I got my first piece of mail with my name on it, my address, I just was so over the moon. I had done it. I bought my own place. It was the best feeling in the world to actually have accomplished that. So I think everybody has a right to own their own home, and I just love helping people achieve that. It's just amazing. I know I'm not a doctor or anything. I do joke about that. I'm not saving lives, but I'm helping dreams come true, and that means the world to me. I mean, having that feeling and having someone help you, because it can be anxious. You can be thinking, what do I need to do? What is involved? But if you've got someone that's got the experience and really genuinely wants to help you, then I think it makes the process so much easier. So definitely find someone who understands the buying process from beginning to end and can really, really help you, tell you what you need to look out for, tell you what mistakes they've made in the past so you can avoid them, or their clients have made in the past, because at the end of the day, you are not from that. Everybody's unique, but this situation isn't unique. So at the end of the day, don't worry about it. Think about someone else has bought a place before, they have been through this before, and they can actually help me avoid mistakes. And no question is a silly question, because believe me, someone else has asked it as well. So it's not just you. The next thing I think is very important is understanding your credit. Now, when I say understanding your credit, it's understanding your credit report. What is a credit report and what does it involve? It's also understanding your credit file. Your credit file is the original piece, and then you get your credit report from that. And then it's understanding your credit score. Because once you actually understand your credit file, that produces the credit report, and that actually does give you the credit score. Now, by understanding all of this right at the beginning of the process, you can start avoiding issues that would make your credit score reduce, which means when you're actually applying for the mortgage, it can either be difficult or near on impossible, or, as I like to say, not right now. So if someone comes to me and their credit isn't the best or is extremely low, then we can work on it. But if we start doing that when you're, say, alongside saving up for a deposit, then you can do it hand in hand. And then when you've saved the deposit, then you've also got the great credit report, and things just flow a lot quicker, rather than getting to one point and then realizing you haven't worked on something else. But that again is covered by knowing the buying process. You'll know what's involved and what to do and what to do when. The final thing that I'd like to say is what you should be doing first is you should be understanding right from the get-go what you can borrow and what you can afford and why it is different. Now, what you can borrow is all related to what the bank is going to lend you. What you can afford is based on what you are paying on a month-to-month basis. So when you're talking about what you can borrow, there are two kinds of bottlenecks, if you like. So when you're talking about what you can borrow, even if your salary is amazing and you can, it says you can borrow 150, 250,000 pounds, anything along those lines, but you've only got a deposit of 5,000 pounds. If you've only got a deposit of 5,000 pounds, the most you can get is a 5% deposit. You can get 5% deposit, 10%, and it goes up from there. But the least amount you can get is the 5% deposit. The most they will lend you is 95%. So if you've got £5,000 savings, the most you're going to be able to borrow is the 95, right? So it doesn't really matter what your salary is if your deposit is too low. But vice versa, you could have a massive deposit, but you just haven't got the right income, and your income is too low, or you haven't worked there long enough, or you're self-employed and you haven't got enough self-employed, or you're limited and you haven't done your account share. There's loads of different reasons where lenders would only borrow to you a certain amount. So you need to understand that from the get-go, because you don't want to go out, start looking for a property, and then find out that you can't afford it. You've put in the offer, you go to get the mortgage, and it doesn't work out. It just wastes everybody's time. But then I've also been in situations where people have come to me, they've put in the offer, it's been accepted, they're looking for a one-bed flat, and then once I've worked out their what they can borrow, it turns out that they could actually buy a 3-bed house. They're like, well, why buy a 1-bed flat, which was our stepping stone to the 3-bed house, if you can go straight to the 3-bed house? So know this information up front. It will save a lot of time with searching and everything. And then what you can afford. This is basically once you've looked at what your monthly outgoings are and how much, so obviously you get your salary in, you take the tax off, so you've got your net salary, then you take off all your living expenses, all your credit commitments, and that kind of thing, and you'll end up with an amount of money, and you actually want the mortgage payments to be within that, so you can actually afford to pay it month by month, because that's not something that you want to be worrying about. Can I pay my mortgage on a month to month? Because as I've explained in other videos, your mortgage is extremely important, and it's a secured loan against the property, your dream home, your bricks and mortar, where you're going to be living, where you're going to be putting the key in and saying, this is my property. You want to be able to make sure that you can pay it every month, because if you miss mortgage payments, if you go into arrears, which means more than one mortgage missed or late or non-payment, that's mortgage arrears. And once you go into arrears, you get to a point where the bank will sell your property in order to pay that loan off, that secured loan. So your property is at risk if you don't make the mortgage payments. So you need to know from the get-go if you can afford it. The other thing is, it's great if you have a career plan and you know roughly what your salary is going to be in a certain amount of, if you're going to save up, spend 2 years saving up for a deposit, what do you think your salary is going to be at that point? Because then if your salary goes up, you're going to want a higher deposit, aren't you, in order to compensate for the salary, or vice versa. So you need to sort of look, what is your potential career path? Where do you see that going? And by understanding what you can borrow and what you can afford, you can do it for now, but you can also do it in a year's time or 2 years' time when you think you've saved that deposit up. So it's really good to sort of understand, okay, I'll be able to, in 2 years' time, borrow X, which means I need a deposit of Y, which means I'm going to work towards that. So that's basically first time buyer concerns and what I would recommend that you should do first. My name's Amanda Walker and I'm the mortgage coach.